Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're jumping into chapters 2 and 3 of the ITIL 4 Direct, Plan, and Improve syllabus. This is the stuff you absolutely need to know for your certification, so let's just dive right in.
Okay, so let's tackle this head on. How does some big, grand idea cooked up in a boardroom actually turn into something a team works on every single day? It's a pretty huge question, right? We're going to trace that exact journey, what we call the strategic cascade, from that high-level vision all the way down to what you actually do at your desk. All right, so first things first, we've got to talk about the guiding lights of any organization. We're talking about the big three: vision, mission, and strategy. Everything, and I mean everything, builds on these. So, the vision. Think of it as the ultimate why. It's that big, shiny North Star on the horizon. It's not about what the company is doing right this second, but what it's dreaming of becoming. This is the stuff that gets everyone fired up and gives all their work a real shared purpose. Okay, so if the vision is the dream, the mission is the reality. It's way more grounded in the here and now. It's all about what the organization is doing today, who it's serving, how it's operating, all in the service of reaching that big vision. It's the what we do. And this slide right here, this is a big one for your DPI exam, so listen up. The distinction is super important. Vision is all about the future, right? What we want to become. Mission, on the other hand, is all about the present, what we do. Here's a simple way to lock it in. Vision is the destination you've plugged into GPS. Mission is where your car is on the map right now. So how do you get from your current position to your destination? Well, that's where strategy comes in. It's the bridge. It's the high-level roadmap, the how, that connects what you're doing today with where you want to be tomorrow. It lays out the big moves and top priorities to make sure you actually get there. Okay, so you've got this awesome strategy. Now what? How does that actually trickle down through an entire organization with maybe hundreds or even thousands of people? Well, it happens through something called the objective cascade. It's all about breaking that big plan down into bite-sized pieces. And this is where the magic really happens. It's all about alignment. That big, top-level strategy gets broken down into departmental objectives. Then, those get turned into specific goals for each team. And finally, those goals become actual, tangible tasks for individuals. The beauty of this is that it creates a clear line of sight. You can trace any single task all the way back up the chain to the top-level strategy. It connects the dots. Now, for this whole cascade thing to actually work, people need to be able to make decisions, and they need to make them at the right level. This brings us to a super important concept for the exam, the scope of control. Basically, it's about who has the green light to make which decisions. And it's a real balancing act, you know? If someone's scope of control is too narrow, they can't do anything without asking for permission. Every tiny thing gets escalated up the chain, which creates these massive bottlenecks and just frustrates everyone. But if it's too wide, you've got the opposite problem. Someone might make a call that has huge negative consequences because there wasn't enough oversight. It's a real Goldilocks situation. It has to be just right. Let's make this real. Think about Lucy Jones from the bank's best case study in the ITIL material. She's the product owner for the My Way project. For her to be effective, she needs enough scope of control to run her team day to day. Prioritizing the backlog, making small design choices. She can't be running to the chief digital officer every 5 minutes. Her authority has to match her responsibility. All right, so if you've got all these people at different levels making decisions, how do you keep everything from going off the rails? You need guardrails. And in the ITIL world, those guardrails are your policies, controls, and guidelines. Let's start with policies. These are the non-negotiables. They are the hard and fast rules, formally written down, that tell you what you must do. Think about things like your company's information security policy. It's not a suggestion, right? There are real consequences if you don't follow it. Guidelines, though, are a totally different beast. These are your recommendations, your best practices. They give you a suggested path, but they trust your professional judgment. They're all about how you could do something, leaving room for you to be flexible and adapt to the situation. And here we go again, another key distinction for your DPI exam. You gotta know the difference. Policies are rigid, they are the law. Guidelines are flexible, they're the friendly advice. One is about compliance, making sure you follow the rules. The other is about empowerment, helping you make good choices.
Okay, so if policies are the rules of the road, what are controls? Well, they're like the traffic lights and the speed bumps. They're the actual mechanisms you put in place to enforce the policies and manage your risks. A control could be something technical, like making a field in a form mandatory, or it could be a process, like needing your manager's approval. It's the practical stuff that makes sure the rules are followed. Okay, let's pull back and look at the big picture. We're going to tie all these concepts together with the two ideas that sit on top of everything and make sure the whole organization stays on course: governance and risk management. Governance sounds like a big, scary word, but it's really the ultimate framework for how an organization is run. It's the whole system of rules, practices, and processes that direct and control things from the very top. We're talking about the board of directors, setting major policies, and keeping an eye on performance to make sure the company is healthy and playing by the rules. And you can't talk about plans without talking about risk, of course. Now, ITIL has a pretty simple definition. It's just an uncertainty of outcome. And here's a key point. We usually think of risk as a bad thing, something that could cause harm. But uncertainty can also be a good thing. Taking a calculated risk might lead to a huge breakthrough or open up a brand new market. So how do you manage all that uncertainty? Well, a simple tool like this risk register is super powerful. You can see here you identify a potential risk, like maybe the service desk isn't trained up on the new MyWay product. Then you give it a score for how likely it is to happen and how bad the impact would be. That gives you an overall score, and bam, you know exactly which risks you need to jump on first. And this brings us to such a critical point. When you're managing risk, the answer isn't always more control. The real goal is to have just enough control. You want to reduce the risk without completely strangling creativity and slowing everything down. It's a delicate balance, for sure. So what does a good, smart control look like? Well, for starters, it should focus on creating value, not just measuring things for the sake of it. And you have to remember, the moment you start measuring something, people's behavior changes. It's also a great idea to automate controls wherever you can to keep things consistent. And maybe most importantly, you have to review them all the time. Make sure they're still relevant and not just some old, meaningless box-ticking exercise. And that's a wrap on this explainer. The big takeaway here is that clear framework for how a grand vision becomes day-to-day reality through that cascade of objectives, decisions, and smart guardrails. So as you're prepping for your exam, and maybe more importantly, when you go back to your actual job, really think about that question on the screen. Are the controls you deal with helping or hindering? Finding that perfect balance, that's the real heart of direction, planning, and improvement.